So today was an interesting day for gaming news for things like the FPS space. Warzone Mobile was announced and fully revealed for when that's going to globally launch. A new event in Modern Warfare 3 started, among other things, but frankly, it's not really worth expanding on either of those things. I'm not a guy who really plays or covers mobile stuff. A new event can be covered in just simply that mention, a new event started. But one thing that caught my eye as of recently comes from the other side of the coin of the FPS giants, Battlefield. Recently, there was some information that came out in regards to the next Battlefield project, still a ways off, but interesting nonetheless. Today, I want to run down this stuff with you and let you know what you need to know. So as we go along, drop your thoughts below. And if you could do me the biggest favor and drop a like if you enjoyed this, the expanded coverage in a variety of games here, whatever the case would be greatly appreciated. And of course, subscribe for more. Honestly, I got to thank you all before we jump into this here. I tremendously appreciate the support outside of the realm of what's been air quote normal here on the channel for the past decade. It's been creatively liberating just talking about games that I'm enjoying, and I'm glad to see other people enjoying it as well. It's been a nice change of pace, so truly thank you. Supporting each video with a like does help out with that algorithm and helps to hopefully grow our community here. So truly thank you for the support, really appreciate it. But anyways, Battlefield. So, since we haven't talked about Battlefield in a little while here, let's kind of set the stage. Battlefield 2042 has been in a sort of course correction stage the last few seasons of post-launch support, and personally speaking, I think they've made solid strides. You're still welcome to feel how you will about it. By no means am I saying it's a perfect game. Do I love the game to the fullest degree? Still far from that, but I think the last few seasons have at least made better strides for players to enjoy the game. But 2042 has its 7th season coming up here in March. That's the immediate future, but beyond that, I mean, who knows? Probably at some point continued seasons even further on down the line, but the long term was slightly mapped out in a recent earnings report and recent reporting from gaming journalists. Initially, it was mentioned by EA CEO Andrew Wilson that it was hinted at the next Battlefield title would not be coming until 2025. So nothing later this year, but instead in a stack year upcoming for gaming that is 2025. And again, that tentative target is apparently October, though that part's relatively in line with franchise history, so shouldn't be too much a surprise. Beyond that, nothing of any official channels, but Tom Henderson, industry insider who we've touched on here on the channel in the past plenty of times, he had a report where he said his publication, Insider Gaming, was made aware of a few more details about the project. That's going to be a back-to-the-roots approach for Battlefield. 64-player matches, return to the 4-class system as opposed to the specialists currently seen in 2042, an overhaul to its destructive systems, a strong story-driven game with emphasis on modern tech and how it's used in a war, set in a more modern-day setting, focused around the era of 2025 to 2030. Noting that kind of stuff, probably a welcome return to form for a lot of Battlefield diehards. Now, first glance, of course, that does all sound pretty good, but frankly, it's only 5 bullet points of information that are kind of generalities, nothing really super specific, and again, we're still so far out that we're probably not going to see anything in regards to specifics for quite some time. So tempering expectations, I think, is key, especially given how we saw 2042 launch. Sure, it turned its way around a little bit, in which it's much better than it was at launch, but I mean, still, that's something that if you're a diehard Battlefield fan, you've probably been disappointed the last couple of entries in some way or another. So by no means am I saying this kind of stuff to hype you up and be like, hey, Battlefield's back, baby. But with the information given, it's a nice starting ground, I think. So Battlefield's next game in 2025 seems to hopefully be on the right path, perhaps. It also seems like they're investing heavily into the game for a number of things, with multiple studios working on it and multiple key additions since 2042's launch to the franchise as a whole. Key players including Vince Zampella, formerly of COD and Infinity Ward with COD 4 and Modern Warfare 2, Titanfall and Apex of Respawn Entertainment. He's now the head of the Battlefield franchise. Christian Grass, formerly of DICE LA, is heading up the studio Ripple Effect. Marcus Leto, the guy who co-created the Halo franchise, was heading up the narrative team at Ridgeline Games. He's since left on his own accord. And then Byron Bede, formerly of the Call of Duty and Live Services team, is now the general manager of the franchise. So some big hitters there for sure, but I mentioned that in the order that I did on purpose. Now, I mentioned Bede last for a reason, as a segue into the next portion of the discussion, because yeah, cool, new Battlefield game and everything. We don't have details yet, but I mean, it's always inevitable that we'll see another Battlefield game of some kind. But the GM of the franchise came from managing Call of Duty and specifically the Live Services team. Live Services in the last few years was almost entirely managing Warzone. You know, that game that blew up in Modern Warfare 2019 as a free-to-play battle royale, became a cultural gaming hit and icon during and after COVID, and since has been, well, whatever you think of it. I mean, a lot of people really enjoy the course correct we've seen in Modern Warfare 3's year of support. Others still think we're so far from the original Warzone experience. I have no skin in the game. I don't care, truly. But frankly, that's of note because, well, Battlefield apparently is attempting to catch lightning in a bottle again with this model almost exactly how we saw in Modern Warfare 2019 up until today with Call of Duty. It's reported that Ripple Effect, the studio that is working on a new experience for the Battlefield franchise, is working on a new Battle Royale title that's currently aimed to be a free-to-play and follow a similar strategy to the highly successful Call of Duty Warzone that will see the free-to-play experience tie in with its premium release. The game is said to be the brainchild of Byron Bede, who had been previously leading live services for Call of Duty. Currently, the game has two different game modes, including the classic Battle Royale experience and a game mode named Gauntlet, which will see teams of players compete in objective-based modes, with the lowest scoring team being kicked out after each mission. So it's all starting to kind of make sense now, right? Especially with those hires. People specifically capable of doing what they're trying to do. Now, admittedly, while from a business sense, I'm sure that it makes a ton of sense in probably generating revenues beyond our wildest imaginations, also expanding player counts with the free-to-play aspect of the game, and more, I'm just kind of hoping for the Battlefield franchise, if they do this, that it's not too late an introduction, if that makes sense. I mean, I mentioned this over on Twitter when it was first announced, but personally speaking, I kind of, and I could be wrong, this is just all personal opinion and bias perhaps, I feel like we might be over that hump for Battle Royales as an industry trend. Again, personally speaking only. I feel like having seen all the way back in the days of like Arma 2 mod days, the Minecraft Hunger Game days, the H1Z1 days, and so on, that was the kind of build up for the Battle Royale genre to seeing things that blew up in the way of PUBG, Fortnite, Apex Legends, Warzone, and such, that we're already seeing additional or other emerging trends in the gaming space that are really taking off in that same capacity, the same way of the earliest iterations of Battle Royales. Things like Tarkov, Marauders, Hunt Showdown, maybe you can even throw DMZ in there with last year's Modern Warfare 2 if you want to, but that extraction shooter I feel like is that next thing that developers and publishers are probably going to chase down in the near future. So I'm just hoping that with that sort of shift, it can do Battlefield justice in doing well for that game and the franchise, but we'll see. I mean, keeping that in mind, obviously there's still wildly successful games out there in the BR genre that maybe I'm just burnt out and looking at it from a different perspective. I mean, PUBG is always the one that catches me by surprise because I don't pay too much attention to that community nearly as much as I used to. But I mean, just on Steam alone, in the last 24 hours, its peak concurrent was over 600,000 players. Apex Legends is also up there in the Steam charts, that also being in the top 10 of the most played games in the last 24 hours, with a peak concurrent in the last 24 being 453,000 concurrent players. So like, perhaps it's just my burnout and bias, like there's absolutely an audience there still for it. I just hope for the sake of the success of the franchise and maybe getting people to love universally Battlefield again, that it can catch fire and elevate itself to a degree that if you're like releasing something too late, you just wouldn't have that same peak as possible, if that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm just rambling. But anyways, I've always thought that a Battlefield game was such an obvious candidate for a Battle Royale that I'm surprised that it hasn't happened in a well-done way just yet. Like, yes, we had Firestorm and Battlefield 5, but that was sat behind a premium game paywall in a year where Fortnite was free to play and absolutely booming, and then also it was released right after the Apex Legends Shadow drop that took the world by storm, that again, it blew up at that point. So it was overshadowed by two free-to-play titles that it just never really stood a chance to reach the masses that those other ones did. And then Hazard Zone, I mean, that was something. And again, it just didn't really have a chance to survive, given that, of course, the launch of 2042 was so abysmal, and then they concluded the additional support of it in May of 2022, so just 6 to 7 months after the game's launch. So if you were to do it right, a free-to-play Battle Royale, I think, could absolutely be phenomenal. I mean, I've always thought Battlefield, for the most part, kind of went hand-in-hand with that BR formula. I mean, obviously not the same gameplay loop as what you'd be playing with, like, Conquest or something, but things like larger player counts by default, destruction and chaos, solid gunplay, vast, massive maps and worlds, like, those check the boxes on both Battlefield and Battle Royale games. So to me, the problem wouldn't have ever been if it was a good match for the franchise. It'd be if it be supported and done well enough that it could complement the franchise. And I know that for the Battlefield purists out there, sure, I'm probably not super welcome in this community or whatever, but sure, it might not be a good match in that sense, but as an additional item for players to play and introduce new people to the franchise, if it's not taking away from the core game in theory, it's just additional, I personally don't see any issue with it. One of the things that I don't like that Call of Duty's really done in the past was that it seemed like more often than not, maybe Modern Warfare 3 is kind of the first year to give competition, but it felt like Warzone, especially in the last couple of years, got all the attention, whereas the traditional multiplayer and actual game experience that people played for, that was slightly neglected and put to the wayside. So if you can somehow do that where that's in addition to the Battlefield experience and does not neglect the premium game, well, I personally don't have a problem with it. Maybe you guys are different, but anyways, I'm rather intrigued to see where this will go in the next 20-ish months or so on how development shapes up and what the game ends up turning out to be. At the time, a 4-year dev window, a refocus on what Battlefield's community wants, and the potential for expansion of audience with a free-to-play wing of the game and Battle Royale. I mean, at the very least, I'm curious to see what happens, but going further, I might be actually hopeful to see something good here come out of this. I don't know, we'll see. Espresso and editing here now, coming back to it a little bit after recording this video. Well, unfortunately, there's an update to not necessarily the idea that a Battle Royale is coming, but the Battlefield team has been affected by recent layoffs. EA today announced that they were laying off around 700 employees, and as a part of that, it was also announced that EA is shutting down Ridgeline Games, which was the studio working on the narrative experience for the upcoming Battlefield game. So I hate to kind of drop this like last second here. I honestly had no idea where I could throw this into the video besides this, but like, I mean, dude, layoffs are just, it's insane to me that we're seeing so much year over year again, record profit, but this year and the past year have just been insane for layoffs. So I'm literally recording this like as this actually is announced here, so I don't really have my thoughts entirely together. Truly hoping for everybody that was affected by that kind of stuff to find their footing, and if by some chance this comes across one of you guys that were affected by it, I do hope that you're thriving at the end of this, and this is just merely a bump in the road for your own personal careers. And as for the discussion at large here that we just had, hopefully this doesn't derail things too much, or that 20 months out, hopefully whatever progress was made can be picked up with ease and still expanded upon, that the product then isn't hurt by it. So that's where I'm at here again with the amended situation with it, but that's where we're at. But anyways, just wanted to fill you guys in, and again, continue this sort of variety in terms of what we can bring to the channel here in the content. So hope you guys did enjoy this. Hope you guys, again, are cool with more variety and expansion in the content. Truly appreciate the support the last week or so here that we've done only like 2 COD videos in the last 7 or 8 days. So thank you guys so much for the continued support, but let me know your thoughts down below. If you guys enjoyed the video, again, do me a favor and drop a like on it, and subscribe for more if you guys would like to stay up to date with all this. But for now, that's what we're gonna call it. So thanks so much for watching. My name has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.